Hey everyone, I'm Lori Keating and this is KidLit Meet and Greet. I am here today with Carrie Karnes-Fannin, writer and editor at Little Thoughts Press. Welcome, Carrie.
Hi, Lori. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Oh, gosh, trying to think of a short story. Well, I am a mom of two, but an empty nester now. I live in northern part of Georgia, near Tennessee and Alabama. You might can tell from my voice that I did grow up in the South,
Yes.
in and around this region. And let's see, I used to be a photographer, and I've also worked in insurance claims, so I've worn a lot of different hats. And now I work full time writing, doing a little illustrating, and walking the dog. So
It's a great life.
I cannot complain.
All right. Okay, so I am really curious about this. In your bio, you have she believes 42 answers the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. So, do you mind sharing with everyone what that means?
It's kind of a nerd joke.
Okay.
Um, one of my big inspirations, I guess, for the style of humor that I use in my writing is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't know if you've ever read any of that or seen any of the references. It's sort of an absurdist British type humor, sci-fi back in the 80s and 90s, I guess. And it was a running joke in the series that there's this computer that was supposed to figure out the meaning of life, and they got this answer of 42, but they'd lost the question. It's so that was one of the quest throughout the series, was to figure out what the question was. And it's so, yeah, it's just a little in joke from The Hitchhiker's Guide.
I see. How fun. Okay, so how did you get started writing children's stories?
Well, it was one of those random things. Of course, that's probably true for almost all of us. My niece, she has young children of her own, and I was on Facebook one winter. You know, it was a sleety day, couldn't get out, was pretty much trapped in the house, very bored. And I was on Facebook just looking at family photos, and she was posting pictures of a new puppy that she had just gotten for her kids. This little dachshund, really cute. And they had him flown in from another state. And his name was Spike. And my niece, when she was a little girl, she called dogs dog dog. So, you know, it just, this line just came to my mind. This said, Spike the dog dog was born on a cool fall day. And so that was the beginning of the first KidLit story that I ever wrote. And so I just basically wrote this story, just a quick little story of how Spike the dog dog came home. And it included her kids. And I did some illustrations for it and printed it out and bound it up, and I sent it to them. And she sent me a video of her kids reading the book, which of course is like a drug for any writer to be. And so I did some more and I did some more. Um, and I guess I haven't stopped since.
That is awesome. I love hearing how people come about doing that and what I mean, having kids read your story. I know even my daughter, she's 13 now, but when I have her read my picture book stories out loud, just because I love
Mhm.
hearing her read my stories, it's, super special for sure. So, I know you already said a little bit where your ideas can come from, but how about your other ones for your other stories? Because you're a multi-genre writer. Is that right?
That's true. That's true. I started out with picture books because, you know, it just happened to be where the inspiration took me. And that's all I wrote for a long time. And I went from fiction into nonfiction, wrote a lot of biography, and got into some concept books. Then I went back to fiction and started writing chapter books. And I'm knee deep in the middle of an early middle grade novel, which will be my second run at writing one of those.
Nice.
And one of these days when my writing muscles are strong enough, I have a YA that I've outlined.
Oh,
So,
fun.
that's on the horizon at some point. So yeah, as far as ideas, I mean, honestly, you just have to be listening because the universe brings you ideas when you're out. You overhear a conversation, you're reading the newspaper, you see a little dad joke on Twitter, and it just takes you somewhere. For me, though, honestly, my most consistent inspiration are archaic words. I'm very much a word nerd, keeping a notebook, like Jennifer Thomas and her Twitter posts with all the words that she's
Yes,
like.
those are so fun.
Oh, she's one of my favorite Twitter people. Is like, I love that word. And so I keep a word notebook with those kind of words. And they're just characters. They're like little old people. And a lot of my story characters are little old people in spirit. They just come with so much story already built into them. And words are that way. They come with this layer, this history. And you start unpacking that and you find a character. Like my most recent picture book, I have two of the main characters are named Bamboozle and Hornswoggle. Nice. So, I mean, those started out as words that I just loved, and I had to find their story. So, yeah, it's true in a lot of my stories. You'll see a lot of archaic language and setting. I think it's some of my southernness coming through there.
Yeah, that's great. And kids love to pronounce, fun names like that too. So,
yeah.
So, what is your favorite part about being a writer?
Oh, gosh. Well, like a lot of people, drafting can be a really painful experience. I'm sorry, my dog is barking.
It's okay.
Sometimes drafting's just joyous, but we all know those buses don't come along too often. It's usually a slog. So the part that I love is revision. I love playing on the sentence level and seeing how words go together, even how they look on the page. My favorite poet is E. Cummings, and if you're familiar with your work, you know how it's very visual as well as playing off of the sounds, as well as the meaning of the words themselves. So I like when I can get into that sandbox and play with the words a little bit at that level.
Oh, I love that. That's great. So, what are some of the challenges that you have, and how do you deal with them?
Well, I mean, like any writer, I get in my own head and get in my own way sometimes. You have an idea and you're on fire for it, then you're halfway through the manuscript and you're like, oh, this is dumb, this is dumb. So I think we all have to struggle through the middle parts like that. Or I think one of the things that I deal with that maybe not every writer deals with is I have a chronic illness. And so I have to manage my spoons, as people like to say, and really carve out that space in my life to make sure that the writing comes first, and I don't run out of spoons before I get to it. Aww. And a lot of people, you put your husband or your wife or your kids or everybody else is on the list before you. And just you have to put the writing a little bit higher on the list to make sure it gets done.
Yeah, that's super important. Yeah, definitely. So, do you favor, I know as a multi-genre writer, I am too, do you favor one over the other, or do you just love them all?
I do love them all for different reasons.
Me too.
I think one of the advantages of working on different projects and different kinds of projects is when you're in the middle of something and you're stuck or you're trying to procrastinate. You can procrastinate by switching over. So when
Definitely.
sometimes when I'm really right now I'm in the middle of drafting this middle grade and I'm in the middle of scenes and it's all fiction, fiction, fiction. And when I get stuck, I can switch over to a nonfiction manuscript and like I'm gonna go look up these
Yes.
facts and that
Yeah.
kind of clear my brain.
Yes.
So I guess the answer is whatever one I'm not working on at the moment all of a sudden becomes my favorite.
Yes.
Because oh, I must go over here. But yeah, they all have something different about them that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I do that same thing. Like if I get really deep into, my YAs or something, and then I'm just like, I need a break from this, and I'll switch over to picture books. And it's just like, it just does something in your brain, that just, like rejuvenates you or something. Yeah, I love that. Okay, so when you write, do you have to have a certain atmosphere? Do you have a favorite snack or drink? Do you have anything like that?
I do tend to want the door closed. It's very important to me to have my own space, which is a luxury. I know a lot of people are writing in their car while they're waiting for their
Yeah.
kids at school or at the soccer field or something. And I guess anybody can find a way.
Sure.
But my hat's off to those people. Yeah, I like to be alone. I like the doors shut. I put my phone and computer on do not disturb.
Nice.
There are these videos on YouTube that you can play in the background that are for writing. And I wrote it down so I make sure I get the right name here. So there's a lady that you see a lot of YouTube, Abby Emmons.
Okay.
I'm saying her last name is Emmons. And she has a lot of videos about writing. They're wonderful. But she also has these videos that are just music. And this
Great.
one, it's like white noise almost, where this one is the Academia train. So you hear these train sounds in the background and you hear the clatter and you hear them going through tunnels and the whistle um, and they do it in the Pomodoro method. So there's like 20-30 minutes of train noise and then there's just like this really quiet music for 10 minutes for your break and then you go back and forth.
Nice.
And it's really I used to be just utterly quiet and now I kind of like those in the background and I like the rhythm because I really do like the Pomodoro method to have a writing session, just that little bit of structure with it.
Yeah.
And I usually drink tea, hot tea. I forget to drink it. I will make
Yeah.
hot tea. I have
It's
many
really
cups
nice
of hot tea that get thrown away, but usually I'll have a cup sitting here doing nothing. But
That's so funny. That's me too. And then I'm like, oh, my tea. And then I drink it cold and it still tastes good. But yeah, hot cup is better. Okay. So do you have a big dream as a writer?
well, I mean, I think I have the same dream almost any of us do. At some point, you want to publish with the big five, you want a series, you want to be a regular on speaking at schools or be a keynote at a convention. I mean, like these big dreams. And um, those are all true things for me. But I think the biggest dream I have, and it's kind of writing adjacent instead of writing itself. Um, but I want to be a mentor.
Oh, wow. And you would be wonderful at that. I seriously believe that. I mean, I've had the been fortunate to have the opportunity for you to help me with one of my stories for a KidLit contest. And I was, even to this day, I still tell my husband, it's like, wow, you would be so excellent at that. So yeah, I'm going to be rooting you on for that one for sure.
Yeah, every job I've had in my wildly varied career of life, I have officially or unofficially gotten into a position of being a trainer or being a mentor. And I wouldn't have been able to cut it, I don't think, as an actual educator, the 25, 30 faces staring back at me is probably more than I can handle. But I really, it just feeds me. It sounds like me thing. But I cannot think of anything I enjoy more than working with somebody in that way and seeing a light bulb come on for them, and then them going off and like, oh, that worked. And so yeah, at this point, I would just love to have the qualifications. Usually they want you to be published and have an agent, these sort of qualifications, but also to have that depth of knowledge and the ability to work with somebody else in a way that helps them do what it is that they're wanting to do with their manuscript, that helps them fulfill their vision for the manuscript and not yours. But to have that skill set and to be able to officially do that with somebody, I think that would just be absolutely a blast.
Yes. Well, I mean, as a person who just like, start stuff, I would encourage you just do your own. I bet you'd have a lot of people willing to sign up with you and get on board. I think you'd be amazing at it.
Well, thank you. I have a little practice thing. This is one of the reasons I started with the brainstorms that I do. And, I don't do one every month. I really probably should just set that as a schedule. But when I set up a brainstorm, I will just take a deep dive into somebody's manuscript and do as much research on all the things about it. I learn so much when I do that. And then we'll get on Zoom and talk for a couple of hours. And usually there's follow-up afterward a little bit. And so I feel like that's good practice, and it helps me get out of my head a little bit. And with my own writing, honestly, you learn so much when you're doing it. But yeah, it's a little bit of practice, and I'm sure the first couple brainstorms I do with folks, they're like, okay, back up, lady. You're getting, I've learned a lot about making space for the writer and their intention with their manuscript, and holding that space. And sometimes that's all someone needs. They don't necessarily need a critique. They need just a structure to kind of have permission to play with ideas.
Yeah, sure. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So besides writing, do you have any hobbies? I know you mentioned photography, but do you have any other hobbies?
Oh, I am so sad that I don't. I've tried a lot of different things. I am something of more than something. I am a minimalist, and I will try things, but then I hate clutter, so I don't like things that make things.
Sure.
So art is, now I do my art digitally, so it doesn't accumulate physically in my house. And I love getting outside. I used to go kayaking a lot, and that's something I'd like to get back to.
Yeah, being outside. It's just so like another thing that kind of, frees your mind, right? Resets. Okay, so I want to talk about Little Thoughts Press. So
Okay.
when you were looking for a job as an editor, or were you looking for a job as an editor? And tell us how that came about.
Okay. I hope you have time. This is
Yeah.
somewhat it's one of those stories. So I had written a poem for a contest, and I had gotten a lot of really good feedback on it. And honestly, even to this day, I feel like it was one of the truest things that I've ever written. Like sometimes you write something, it just rings like a bell.
Yes.
And so this was a piece that I really felt carried my heart. And I entered the contest, and I got nothing. I got nothing. It was big nothing. And gosh, I enter a lot of contests, and most of them I'm okay with, but for some reason, this one just hit hard. I had a minute of being really devastated.
Sure.
So I had to look inside myself and, figure out how to process that. And one of the ways that I processed that was I had seen Little Thoughts Press, had a call for submission, and I said, well, I'll take a chance here. And I submitted it. And Claire ended up accepting that piece, which was a pick-me-up that I really needed at that moment. Oh gosh, I needed it. And so later on, we had a continued conversation, and she had said something about how much she had liked the poem, like it had really spoken to her, and that she had thought about it, since then, which is always something you want to hear as a writer, that something has stayed with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think part of me was still just a little bit miffed about not getting a prize in that contest. And so I was sort of in and it made me a little bold. And so I said to her, well, I mean, because at this point she'd published 3 of my poems. And I said, well, you seem to like my writing. You seem to like what I'm doing here. If you ever are looking for a reader, I volunteered to become a reader for the magazine. And I'm like, I'll do it for no money.
No. Like for submissions, you mean? Like that kind of reader? Okay.
Yeah. So, most magazines do have first readers that you kind of sort through, like there's some of them are obvious no's, sure. And some of them are like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever read. And there's so I can do that. And she thought about it, and she came back and she said yes. But she said, I believe in paying people. So she took me on as a trial basis for one issue. She was very careful in her language. It was just like, for this issue, you will be a reader.
Yeah.
And so that worked out okay. And then, she asked me, well, would you be interested in reading for the next issue? Like, well, of course. And then it's just grown from there, where I started getting more and more into the editorial side of things, and doing some illustrations, and here we are. Nice.
So are you the acquisitions editor, or are you one of them, or?
Yeah, that's a good question. The submissions are read by everybody.
Okay.
So our current arrangement is we have 3 issues a year. And it used to be 4, but we recently went down to 3. And so for 1 issue a year, Claire is the lead editor, and 1 issue a year is me, and 1 issue it'll be a guest editor. Okay. And so with that, whoever is taking the lead basically chooses the theme. So okay. Like this most recent issue that I edited, it was the nonfiction theme, because why not? It was wonderful. So we all read, we all have opinions, we all have a conversation. Whoever's leading on that issue kind of has the vision for the totality of the magazine. So that person's opinion probably has just a little bit more weight in the final say. I mean, Claire does have a vision for the magazine altogether, because everything has a personality, a style, and what she wants Little Thoughts to be as a literary magazine, and not like some other, Right. But, as long as it fits into that, then, I get to have what I want.
Wonderful. I love it. Okay, so any projects you're excited that you want to share that you're working on right now?
Well, I mean, like I mentioned, I've got that middle grade novel that I'm working on. It started out as a picture book, and I had sent it to an agent who had some, nice things to say, but felt it worked better as a longer form. And so she had suggested that I work on maybe that idea, and so that's what I'm doing. And I'm really excited about that, because as you know, picture books are such a competitive field. It's just it's tight.
Yeah.
So, just opening potentially another door of opportunity, I'm pretty excited about.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And you know what? I mean, I have two novels that started as picture book ideas. Even my YA was started as a PB idea. So, I mean,
Mhm.
I love that when people expand out, because, sometimes picture books need more.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a fun question right now.
Okay.
What is something you can't live without and why?
Ooh, um, well, let's see. Like I said, I'm a minimalist. I don't have a lot. My closets are empty. Um, I could move at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
But I would say a thing I cannot live without would be a blanket. when I'm,
Oh,
I, when I'm reading, I don't know, even if it's in July, I will have a blanket, because I like just the cozy,
yes.
cozy chair, cozy blanket, my, getting cold cup of tea.
Yes.
So yeah, that would be my thing.
Yeah, I'm the same exact way. That is so funny. I have never met anyone else like that because I live in Florida. So you think blanket and Florida don't mix, but I like to keep my air on so I can have a blanket on me because I like to be.
Mhm. Exactly.
Well, Carrie, this has been so wonderful. I'm so happy to have finally met you, and you are just a lovely person, and I am always going to be cheering you on. You're a beautiful writer, and I'm so excited for all the things you are working on. Can you tell everyone where they can find you on your social medias?
Not many places. Oh gosh, there's so many social medias right now. Uh, Sadly, I am pretty much just on Twitter at this
Okay,
point.
sure.
I am waiting for it all to settle down, and I'll go where everybody else is. But at the moment, I'm just Carrie_KidLit on Twitter. And I'm on Facebook as well under Carrie Karnes-Fannin. Most of my connections on Facebook are writers, so I'm more than happy to connect there as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you, Carrie. This has been wonderful. And we will see you next time.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thank you. Thank you for having me.